Sadly, no, I cannot wait for that popcorn bucket to come in time for this review, so we're just gonna have to chug along without it. No, the notification on your phone or on your computer is not lying to you. You are in fact getting a Marvel Legends review from me, coming out of my self-imposed retirement from Marvel Legends, because as I noted with the majority of the ones that I was doing for Spider-Man figures, I was feeling like I was getting the same figure over and over and over again. I just couldn't really do it until I saw the pre-orders go live for this Deadpool from the movies. I have to be very careful with those words because I understand that in an effort to ramp up hype and momentum and likely sales, because let's face it, that's what all the companies do, in time for Deadpool and Wolverine hitting theaters in July, we got a brand new Marvel Legends, and I use the term loosely, brand new Marvel Legends for the movie version, the Ryan Reynolds version of Deadpool. But it's making a few rounds of, I don't want to say controversy, but riffraff amongst the community because of the way that it's being marketed, which is, in my opinion, in a really awesome box. I love that we're not doing any of the retro card shells with the plastic bubble on it, because I like the displayability of those boxes, but I don't like actually having to cut through them. You risk damaging them. There's just so much working against it that I'm like, I either want to keep it in the box or it's just going to be a hassle to get out of. Whereas here we're dealing with a 6-sided box that you could just kind of lift the tab open, you pull out the figure, everything is nice and compact and organized, and the box itself is actually really nicely designed as far as the logos, as far as the aesthetic, as far as having this very metallic brush look. I just love the overall look and aesthetic and appeal of this box art. However, it's because of this box art that has led to so many people thinking, okay, what are we really dealing with this specific Deadpool? You see, it's the actual logos and the imagery used on the box that is actually hearkening to the 2016 original Deadpool movie. So this is not even Deadpool and Wolverine Deadpool. This is not even Deadpool 2 Deadpool. This is movie 1 Deadpool. And the reason for why this has angered a few, not all, is because there's some listings online, specifically GameStop, that is advertising this as the Deadpool 3 Deadpool, Marvel Legends, and it's not. And as you can see from the box art, you have so much logos and promo art that is from that original first movie material, the marketing material. And that stands out as a factor since you can see from the trailers, but most notably those on-set pics that were released, I think, last year before the strike happened. Literally right before the strike. It was one of the more ironic things where it's like, oh my god, our first look at Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds on the Deadpool 3 set, and then a day later, oh yeah, they're going on strike, so they're shutting down. Damn it. But we got that photo, and everybody was a little conflicted as to how bright red the new Deadpool suit was. People were kind of tying it to Marvel Studios kind of stepping in and saying, you got to be brighter, you got to be jollier. But in the trailer, it actually looked a lot better than originally perceived. So this is definitely, by contrast, the 2016, and I guess you could almost also say the 2018 Deadpool 2 suit, where it's a little bit more muted, but still bright enough to at least stand out as quintessential Deadpool. And then any of the parts that are black have kind of like this smokiness. It's not straight up jet black or night black. It's more so of like this kind of smoky nature that kind of reflects a little bit with a slight matted finish, especially around the shoulder and back area where you do have the katana kind of sheets kind of encompassing the back, as well as this strap, or this kind of like whatever you want to call it, this strap that kind of crosses across his chest and over his shoulder. You'll see an awful lot of that black kind of pierce through. And then, of course, the natural, texturing that makes up his suit, with a little bit of the hexagonal patterning happening along the chest side, the thighs, the arms, and most notably the mask. But then you'll notice that you have all of these quintessential buckles, these pouches that are brown with a little bit of silver etched in. So the detail overall, they were still able to really nail the way that it looked like in that original movie, in a way where I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing an awful lot of detail, sculpt, and most notably value coming out of a Marvel Legends. And that was genuinely surprising to me, especially since out of all characters, Deadpool is the one that really cannot be going half-assed as far as the actual detailing and the sculpt work, since he's dealing with an awful lot of arsenal and weaponing going on the suit itself. You have, like I said, the pouches, the buckle with the replication of his face kind of meeting right there in the middle. You have an awful lot of these pouches. You even have, I can never remember what they're called, but these like little arrowhead type pieces that are around the pec area, they're even kind of etched in right there. You have these straps along the bicep. You have, of course, all of the holstering and extra pouches, knee pads, guards around the shin and knee area that are really etched out, separated. And to me, kind of make up parts of the suit that are my favorites, specifically around the boot area that feel very tactical. They feel very sculpted out, and it feels like something that is not just simply slimed on and painted on. I'm very proud of Marvel Legends for going out a little extra on this Deadpool, whether we got him before or not, because again, this is a figure that went up for pre-order, and it was technically a reissue / restock, but I recognize this being the incarnation of 2016 Deadpool. But I thought to myself, there's enough happening in those promo shots that I thought to myself, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty awesome. Let me go ahead and lock down a pre-order. And it looks like my hunches were correct. And I was pleased even more to see that head sculpt being etched out really beautifully. Granted, it's just, straight up Deadpool. But going back to what I was really boasting about the suit, it's that texturing. It's actually being able to sculpt out and etch out certain details about the mask, whether it be the black parts of his eye with, again, that smoky matted finish, the actual white of the eye being painted on all the way through. There's some sculpt work happening where it almost looks like he's actually pulling off an expression, even though it's not as expressive as it is in the movie, obviously. But you just have something going on with the head where I'm like, it doesn't feel off. It actually feels like that is the exact 2016 Deadpool reincarnated in plastic form. You even have a little bit of that sculpting happening with the little thing that kind of pokes out from the back of his head right here. That is very iconic Deadpool. But to me, like I said, it's the lining that kind of matches to the black eye pieces that stretches out towards the back, and then that texturing that you actually have on the surface of the plastic that really works for me, along with the strapped on collar that he has right there at the neck baseline, and just overall the look of the figure. Whether, like I said, we got him before, if this is a restock, reissue, or a whole new mold altogether, as a guy that was just outside looking in, being on, like I said, pseudo retirement from Marvel Legends, and then seeing this guy go out for pre-order, I was like, yeah, my gut is either telling me that I need to go take a bowel movement, one of the two out of the week, or I should probably pre-order. It ended up being both. However, much like Lucius told Bruce in The Dark Knight, there is a trade-off, and that is going to be the articulation, which inherently is not bad, but it is actually there where I truly got reminded that I'm dealing with the Marvel Legends. The head in particular is really strange because it can rotate 360 and be able to generously tilt up, but when it comes to tilting side to side, it's a little bit more restrictive. It can kind of happen, but it just gets held back a little bit. And then when it goes to coming down, not only can he not really incline and tilt down or look down, but something funky is happening with the neck piece overall, that it feels like it's bending or warping in a specific way where it's like, I don't know, I can't really tell if there was supposed to be articulation at the bottom of the neck, or maybe they kind of pulled back at the last second and refrained from adding it, but they still included spacing in between the base of the neck and the shoulders, to where when you kind of move the head about a little bit, you can kind of see the neck slightly bending a little bit and revealing a sort of gap when you kind of move the collar piece a little higher. You can technically take the collar piece and kind of press it down a little bit more to mask that gap, but the fact that it's there at all is what's making me really confused as to whether or not there was something else happening with the head, and instead they decided to cut back on costs. But at least the main focus of the head articulation, which is going to be the ball joint inside of the head, functions as it's supposed to be. Then you get to the shoulders, where at least we're going on a bit of a brighter note to kind of complement Marvel Legends a little bit here. The top shoulders can definitely rotate vertically 360, as well as being able to extend towards the sides via the hinge. But then furthermore, you have a really good butterfly joint, an actual hinge that moves forward and back to allow even more mobility happening right there. A little bit rigid when it comes to certain angles because of the way of how, the overall chemistry, if you want to call it that, of the joints working together, but at least there is a butterfly joint right there that does a serviceable job of also kind of remaining a little invisible because of the way that the black is very thoroughly painted right there. You do have bicep swivels that are a little tight but can technically rotate the arm in place 360, and 2 joints at the elbow that are fully able to bend all the way up, though mine is just a little stiff on the left arm right about right there. But you still have joints at the wrist that are fully able to rotate 360, and the hinge inside of most of the hands that are fully able to bend inwards and outwards. The reason why I put a little emphasis on the plurality of the term there is it's going to be explained in a little while. And if I wasn't remembering that I was dealing with the Marvel Legends before, it's once we get to the torso that I remember now. We got that upside down hinge in the middle of the torso instead of a proper mid-torso cut, so no other directions to go except to go inwards and outwards. And unfortunately, Deadpool is not necessarily the best example to include a hinge with as far as that articulation, because of the way that this belt is then stitched together and attached to the strap that goes over his shoulders. So every time you do that, it's still not bad. It actually could have been worse. There's definitely areas and directions that this hinge joint could have been a lot worse, and the crunching inwards is actually able to crunch almost all the way through like so. But when it comes to extension towards the back, there is going to be some finagling that has to be done with that belt and shoulder strap piece, because when you do so, you'll notice that it's stretching a little bit here towards the front, pulling the belt upwards right there. It is loose. It's not like glued onto the figure or anything like that. So you do have some flexibility for the belt to actually kind of skirt upwards like so to be able to allow this extension of the hinge. But just be careful, because at the same time, you're at the risk of either damaging the strap or tearing it all together. So do be careful there. You'll also notice that when you move this belt or this buckle, as well as the straps and the pouches that are connected here upwards, this will then in turn reveal the waist cuts that is horizontal right below the hinge, that is allowing the top part of the body or the bottom part, depending on the way that you look at it, to fully rotate 360 degrees via a slightly hinged joint right there, or a slightly ratcheted joint rather. Just be careful with the aforementioned katana sheets as well as the holsters, because they do kind of conflict with one another. But more on the conflicting nature of those holsters in a little bit. Before we get to that though, you do have the top leg joints that are fully able to flex forwards about that far and can technically go towards the back a little far, as you could see right about right there. But when it comes to extension and thigh swiveling, I'm jumping a little ahead here, is where we do kind of come at the cost of those added details that I was more or less praising a little earlier. Because even though I do like the included nature of the sculpted out buckling and straps and holsters and all that stuff, and it adds to the character, to the proper portrayal of this 2016 Deadpool, it unfortunately restricts a little bit of the articulation, because when it comes to leg extension, you'll notice that it goes pretty decently, but it stops right about right there if you do have the included guns inside of the holsters. I'll cover them a little bit more when we get to accessories, but if they are inside of the holster, you're going to have to remove them if you want to go a little further with the leg extension. They do kind of get in the way. Then when it comes to that thigh swivel, it can technically swivel left to right, but it can't really do a full 360, because whether you remove the guns or not, the holster piece itself that's glued onto the side of the thigh right here is, no matter what, going to come into conflict with the top part of the plastic on top of the leg. So unfortunately, that is going to cause some restriction right there and cannot fully rotate all the way across. But at least it moves far enough to provide extra foot stability when it comes to posing. 2 knee joints are still able to bend all the way up. Unfortunately, they are not pinless. You can still see the pin there on the side of the knee itself. And though they do function favorably as far as bending at both joints and allow for, like I said, posability, they do have that Marvel Legends feel to the knee joints that I felt in some other Spidey figures in the past, where when you kind of handle the figure by the legs, you can kind of feel a little bit of warping and bending on the knee joints. Like, they're not made out of the most structural rubberized plastic when it comes to the joints themselves. It's like the thigh and the shin part, or the calf part, are made very solidly, but when it comes to the knee pieces, they skimp out on a little bit of the extra filament inside, that every time I feel the figure from this angle, if I hold him by like the bottom part of the legs, it always feels like the legs are kind of warping a little bit. and it always kind of scares me. And I noticed this from various Marvel Legends, not just this guy. And what I also felt in other Marvel Legends is unfortunately this ankle joint that I've never been the biggest fan of. And it's even more egregious here because of the bulky nature of the ankle piece itself. You'll notice right here that despite my praise towards the paneling of the armor and the actual guards right here to again add to the tactical nature of his suit, and unfortunately kind of bulked out his ankles to the point where they look rather swollen and broken. And it's because of this that lends to the ankle articulation that is that quintessential Marvel Legends joint that I just really don't like, where it's all just one giant piece that only allows the foot to bend downwards and upwards. It is ratcheted and it's pretty stiff, but still firm and malleable enough to allow really strong balancing as far as posability. But if you're looking for any kind of horizontal rotation, you better rely on that already stagnant thigh swivel. Because when it comes to down here, the only way to really move the ankle in any other kind of horizontal direction is to either incline it inwards or outwards like so, or bend it all the way downwards and then rotate it like that. You can't really do any kind of clear-cut horizontal 360 like you can with other competitors, if you will. Now, it is still able to kind of incline in a way to allow, like I said before, balanced posability and being able to make sure that the figure doesn't really topple over. And when you kind of work the ankles combined with a little bit of mobility in the thigh swivel, you'll notice that he can kind of stand his ground very firmly. But I've already had my fair share of topples with this guy by just, filming a little bit of the B-roll and even just playing with the figure overall. And that also kind of pinpoints exactly where the Marvel Legends isms kind of comes back into play, and it's going to be the articulation where it's not necessarily terrible or even that bad. It's serviceable, but much like with Marvel Legends' practices, it could be a lot better. So David, why did you come out of Marvel Legends retirement and get this guy? Because he comes with guns. And I'm only kind of half kidding. Marvel Legends still included his 2 pistols. I can't remember what the exact, I think they're like Desert Eagles or whatever they're called. I'm not a gun guy. I just know that Deadpool needs to come with guns. It's obligatory, and Marvel Legends still abide it. He comes with 2 pistols that are by default on his holsters, but they are removable. They are pretty decently sculpted. They could be an awful lot more paint to be desired. And the guns themselves are made out of this rubbery plastic that at first kind of turned me off a little bit, but over time, I kind of appreciated the way that they're able to fit very nicely and easily into his hands. But just the fact that Deadpool Marvel Legends still comes with guns and companies like McFarlane Toys can't do it, I'm sorry. I understand that it's not up to McFarlane, it's WB imposing on them saying don't include it, but I still have to look at WB and go, what the hell? Guys, come on, look. This is Marvel Legends, who has to answer to Disney in certain respects, not all. Sony, they still got the stuff with Spider-Man, etc. But Deadpool's got guns, and McFarlane can't. Come on. I really don't understand how some of this shit works. Really, it's frustrating. But he comes with his 2 Desert Eagle guns. I believe that's the term. Don't shoot the messenger. Even though I'm probably the one that's getting it wrong. But let me know down below if these are Desert Eagles or if it's a different name for the pistol in question. But as you can kind of see blatantly from the back here, he does come with 2 katanas that can go inside the sheaths. They are a little tight when you get them in there. That's what he said. He said, not she said, but he said. He is always saying that. And when you pull them out, again, they're decently painted. Not much going on in terms of paint sculpt. It's pretty basic. But just the fact that they're included and you can still technically sheath them in either one is still an awesome inclusion in terms of weaponry, in terms of the proper accessories that Deadpool needs to come with. A hunter's knife, I think it's a hunter's knife that can actually be sheathed away here in this holster that's by his left ankle. And much like the katanas, it's just a straightforward dulled out chrome paint on the blade itself, and it's sculpted decently. Again, nothing to write home about, but the fact that it's included along with the katanas, the guns, and of course with all this different weaponry, he has to come with the proper hands to be able to hold them all in. So as you can see by default here, he comes with the fisted hands, but he's also going to come with a set of holding hands that has the hole cut out in the middle to be able to hold either the blade or the katanas in either one, and then trigger hands with the extended index finger to be able to hold those guns. So there you have it. Not only do you get 6 set of hands total here, but then an included extended, slightly gesturing hands the way that you expect Wade Wilson to be able to kind of extend, like he's either indicating you to suck it or to hold a different item altogether that he's probably going to suck. And that is the ungodly unicorn plushie from Deadpool 1. If you didn't know already that this is the Deadpool 1 incarnation and not Deadpool 3 or even 2, he's got the unicorn plushie. I don't need to remind you exactly what he did with it, okay? I don't need a cutaway. We know exactly what this is. And once again, decently sculpted and painted, nothing to write home about. And it's made out of this like rubbery plastic that could kind of warp in the future. I can definitely see it either warping, damn near even breaking. So it's not exactly the most solid thing, but just again, the fact that it's included and the implication of it, considering that it's hearkening to that specific scene, then it's just crazy to me that all of this is included in the package. If I was to nitpick about one thing, it would be that there's some slight inconsistencies with the hands. There's a couple of pairs that have some cool chrome paint finish on the top part of the gloves that is pretty decently painted on there. But then you have some other hands, like the fisted hand here, that don't have it at all. So I don't know why some pairs got the chrome finish as opposed to others not having it. So it's pretty interesting. And the trigger hands have the hinge, and this is what I was kind of calling back to when I was kind of talking about the articulation. The hinge inside the trigger hands is perpendicular to the hands themselves as opposed to the way that they are on the other hands. The other hands, they bend like this. The trigger hands, they bend like this, which I guess is supposed to like gestate a gun, but at the same time, I'm like, there's times where I kind of want to bend the hand this way instead of this way. So I don't understand why the difference in the hinging there. So I don't know. I guess that's going to land more on the subjective side, depending on who you ask. Some people might like this, some people might not. I kind of don't, but it's not necessarily a make or break deal. I still appreciate the fact that all of this stuff is included for $25. And that's the answer to the question from earlier. Why did I actually listen to my gut and get this guy despite kind of pseudo swearing off Marvel Legends, especially after my run-ins with the Spidey figures that they've been doing? And that's because this actually gave me the impression that I was going to be dealing with a different figure that I haven't dealt with before, despite the momentary trappings of the usual Marvel Legends stuff that they pull off, specifically around the articulation area, where we really need to get past this ankle joint, some of the questionable choices with the hinge, the feeling of some of the plastics, specifically around the knee area. But to me, again, I've always been a value guy. So to see that this guy was going for $25, which is the standard for Marvel Legends out there right now, but then seeing everything that was included, 8 hands total, the unicorn plushie, and then more importantly, the almost obligatory katanas, knife, and actual guns. They didn't skimp out on the pistols. Probably could have used an extra rifle here or there, but still, it's the pistols. It's the up close and personal stuff that Wade is known for, that I looked at it and thought, yeah, this actually might make me move, and I'm pretty happy with the end result here. Still, there's areas to still be able to improve upon that I've always commented on when it comes to Marvel Legends, but at least if they could kind of retain this and keep it in that same direction, who knows? Maybe Marvel Legends might be able to win me back. For now, I'll have to give this iteration of Deadpool, whether it's a reissue, restock, or a whole new mold altogether, a really respective 8 out of 10. In the meantime though, what do you guys think about these like reissues, restocks, re-releases? I don't know. Do you think that this is a viable business opportunity for Marvel Legends to maybe look at the drought of Marvel stuff and be like, you know what? Let's look back at some of the earlier things and give them kind of like a 2.0, at the same time maybe keeping the price the same. I would actually kind of be down for it. It's just, you know, No more of this like $25 and you only get like a set of hand stuff. Alright, that's what kind of scared me away in the first place. Let me know down below, and as always guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button. If you did not, hit the thumbs down. And you guys know what to do. Stay humble. I'll see you later.